follow me on Periscope? Oh. Well, that's interesting. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, Jumu'ah Mubarak to everyone. I want to start this morning off with something that I mentioned in my book that inshallah ta'ala will be released later on today. For those of you who purchased the book and would like to pick the book up personally, inshallah ta'ala, I'll be doing the Jumu'ah khutbah at Sister Claire Muhammad School in Philadelphia, 4700 Wyalusing Avenue. Jumu'ah starts at 1:15. Inshallah ta'ala, I'll be there before the Jumu'ah, or you can pick the books up afterwards. One of the things that I mentioned in my book, one of the concepts, I have a chapter in the book called The Do's and Don'ts of Polygyny. Just basically giving men some pointers on how to navigate the terrain of polygyny. And one of the do's or one of the don'ts that I put in there's 15 do's and don'ts related to polygyny. One of the don'ts is don't translate your wrong into right. Don't translate your wrong into right. Meaning you make a mistake, you do something wrong, and your wife or one of your wives call you on that wrong, and instead of you owning it, you use the Quran and the Sunnah to translate that wrong into what looks like something that is right. Men do it in monogamy, but they do it in polygyny, I believe, a little bit more. Why? Because everything in polygyny is, exacerbated. Everything in polygyny is magnified. So all of the problems that you find in monogamy and polygyny, they are multiplied many times over. Because there are more people involved, there are more emotions involved, and it's a very intense situation, especially at the very beginning, until people start to become comfortable with one another. But the one thing that we do sometimes as men is we beat our wives up with the Quran and the Sunnah. We use Islam to literally beat our wives, use the religion to spiritually abuse them. It's like she calls you on a wrong and it's like, well, you don't know the Quran. Well, give me the dalil for that. I don't accept what you say unless you're giving me dalil. Right? This is a husband and wife having a discussion at home and you're asking your wife for dalil. This is not an academic discussion where, she's correcting you on something that you did that was wrong. Maybe it has to do with time or management of your money. You came to this wife's house, you're supposed to be there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You didn't get there until 8, and you didn't call and say that you were going to be late. And when you get there, your wife says to you, well, you got here a little late. Well, I had other business to take care of. Okay, well, you could have called, you could have texted something. I'm a grown man. I don't have to tell you everywhere I'm going. Where does it say that in the Sunnah? Bring me dalil for that. And when a man throws that out there, the woman is kind of intimidated. She might not know all of the, ayats and hadith to justify the point that she's making. She's a homemaker. She's not a student of knowledge. I'll say that again. She's a homemaker, not a student of knowledge. She's making the place where you rest your head comfortable. She's taking care of your children. She's making sure that your house is maintained, making sure you have food cooked, making sure you come home to a peaceful environment. And on top of all of that, still dealing with her own insecurities and immaturities and, her own self-rectification. And then on top of all of that, still trying to look attractive and beautiful for you so that, you stay attentive to her needs. On top of all of that, still worrying about her being a failure, still worrying about you loving your other wife more than you love her, even though you were married to her first. There's a lot that goes along with that. And sometimes we dismiss all of that by saying, well, what's your dalil? Well, it's not haram. Sometimes it has nothing to do with it being haram. Sometimes it has to do with it being an infringement on maybe unspoken loyalties that you guys have agreed to, not necessarily on paper, but just by the way that the family functions. And you totally dismiss all of that on the premise of she not having any dalil. Knowing daggone well, if you were talking to someone who had knowledge, you would never come out of your mouth saying, well, where's the dalil on that? You would never come out of your mouth saying that. Because you know that the one that you're talking to would be able to possibly provide you with dalil. So it's very important that, we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. Wallahi, as a man, if you understand that, you don't mind making mistakes. You don't mind making mistakes. Because you learn more from your failures than you do from your mistakes. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يلدغ مؤمن في جحر مرتين. لا يلدغ المؤمن في جحر مرتين. The believer does not get stung in the same hole twice. The believer does not get stung in the same hole twice. What does that mean? That means that the believer is not going to repeat the same mistakes over and over again because he is going to learn from them. He's going to learn from them. We learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. Because you don't actually even know if you are successful. What is the gauge to determine that you have actually been successful? And our, view of success as Muslims is a little different. Whether from a spiritual or from a material perspective. Our determination, the way that we determine success is totally different than by the standards of, pretty much people who lack faith or people who pretty much put their faith in a more material system, a more tangible system, whereby they can calculate their successes. As Muslims, we don't really know if we are successful. We live our entire lives between fear and hope. We live our entire lives in fear that what might be, seemingly a success might actually be a failure. And what might be a failure might actually be success. We live our entire lives like that. So we actually never really know when we have been successful. I'm always amazed when people say, well, how did you benefit from your success? Well, I think my success was largely contributed. It's like, who said you were successful? What was the gauge that you made money, that the deal went through, and you actually came out of the deal with some money? That didn't make you successful. Because there's a parallel world to everything that we do and everything that we say that determines whether or not that action or that statement was successful. We put that in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Muslims, we don't live our lives counting our successes. We live our lives understanding our failures and learning from them. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يلدغ مؤمن في جحر مرتين. The believer does not get stung in the same hole twice. He's going to learn from his mistakes. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in another authentic hadith, he said, لولا تذنبوا لذهب الله بكم ولجاء بقوم يذنبون فيستغفرون فيغفر لهم. The Prophet ﷺ said that if you did not commit sin, لولا تذنبوا, if you didn't commit sin, لَذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِكُمْ, then Allah would replace you, would remove you وَجَاءَ بِقَوْمٍ, and replace you with a people, يُذْنِبُونَ فَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ, who would sin and ask forgiveness for their sins, فَيَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ, and forgive them. That if you didn't commit sin, then Allah would replace you with a people who did, and they would ask for His forgiveness and He would forgive them. Because people who make mistakes are actually the perfect ones, and the people who believe that they're perfect are actually the imperfect ones. If we didn't learn anything from many of the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ, we do understand that things are understood by their opposite. وَبِضِدِّهِ تَتَبَيَّنُ الْأَشْيَاءِ. The scholars have a qaida, a principle, a maxiom, if you will. And that is that things are understood by their opposites. Things are understood by their opposites. So the thing is that we live in a time where the believer, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that the liar will be truthful or be considered truthful, and the one that is truthful will be considered a liar. Everything is not black and white. And the people who believe that they're successful in many instances might actually be the failures. And the people who believe that they're failures might actually be the successful ones. As we know, the Prophet ﷺ said that the Dajjal is going to bring fire and water when he comes. The Antichrist is going to bring fire and water. And what is perceived to be water will actually be fire. And what will be perceived to be fire will actually be water. And the only people that will know the difference between the two is people, the believer, who looks out into the world and translates the world through a spiritual lens. That what you see to be imperfect is actually perfect, and what you see to be perfect is actually imperfect. Like the black woman who used to clean the masjid. Abdullah bin Abbas, he was talking to one of his companions. He said, أَلَا أُرِيكَ إِمْرَأَةً مِّن نِسَاءِ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ. Can I not show you a woman from the people of Jannah, تَمْشِي عَلَى الْأَرْضِ, walking on the earth? And it wasn't somebody of status, of the upper echelons of Arab society. It was a poor black woman who used to clean the masjid, who no one took the time to even consider. Here again, what you consider to be imperfect is actually perfect. And what you consider to be perfect is actually imperfect. Sometimes we finagle, we maneuver, around issues, not taking ownership of things, because we believe the more that I defer this, the more that I, maneuver around this, not taking ownership for my actions, the more I appear in the eyes of the people to be perfect. I want my wife to see me as the perfect specimen of a Sunni Muslim, the perfect specimen of the Quran and the Sunnah. But the more that you do that, the more she sees how imperfect you are. The more you do that, the more imperfect she sees you are. But Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, أَلَا أُرِيكَ إِمْرَأَةً مِّن نِسَاءِ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ تَمْشِي عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. Shall I not show you a woman from the people of paradise walking on earth? He said, Imra'atu Sawda. There was a black woman who used to clean the masjid. And she went to the Prophet ﷺ and she said, O Messenger of Allah, Inni usri'u alayya, that I'm a woman who I'm sick with, I have seizures, epileptic seizures. She said, and when I fall down, my skirt comes up and it exposes me. The Prophet ﷺ said, In shitti sabarti walakil jannah. In sabarti falakil jannah. When shitti da'awtu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said that if you are patient, then your reward is nothing less than Jannah. You're patient with the illness, you're patient with the affliction, then your reward is nothing less than Jannah. He said, and if you desire, then I'll supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove this from you. She said, I'll be patient. But make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when I have my seizures, that when I fall down, that my skirt does not lift up and show my legs. She's still concerned about her awrah, still concerned about her body being exposed, even though she's in a situation where she might be excused by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What excuse do our women have today? It's nothing wrong with you. The thing is that when you look at this narration, she got both anyway. The Prophet ﷺ, what did he say to her? He said that if you're patient, then for you is Jannah. And if you like, then I'll make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove it. She ended up getting both anyway. She said, I'll be patient, but make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when I fall down and have seizures, that my odor doesn't become exposed. It's a win-win situation. She got both anyway. She was patient and she got the Prophet ﷺ to make dua for her. And Abdullah bin Abbas said this woman was from the women of Jannah walking on earth. She was successful. But she was looked at as imperfect because she was a black woman, because she was a nobody, because she was insignificant. And she was considered nobody. But to the Prophet ﷺ, because he looked at life, he looked at the world, he looked at people from a more spiritual lens, he saw something beyond the black skin and the more, insignificant position in the community. He saw something deeper than that. He saw a woman that was perfect. SubhanAllah. He saw a woman that was perfect. So while we're so busy trying to make sure that we paint this image of ourselves, that I don't make mistakes. I've made very few mistakes in my life. And that means that you are imperfect. Because perfect people are the ones that make mistakes. Perfect people are the ones that make mistakes and learn from their mistakes. We learn more from our failures than we do our successes. Because we don't actually even know if we are successful. What's the gauge? You guys following me? You understand what I'm saying to you? Stop trying to circumvent accountability by translating your wrongs into rights. Own it. It's mine. I own it. Yes, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. There's subhanAllah, there's a quality that is attached. There's a quality of humility, of tawadhu, that is attached to owning your wrong. When you own a wrong, it actually elevates you. It elevates you higher. Because the more humility you expose, the higher Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to raise you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, مَا تَوَاضَعَ لِلَّهِ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى. That no one humbles himself before Allah except that Allah will raise him in degrees. Humble yourself. The more you humble yourself before Allah's creatures, the more Allah raise you in his eyes. You see how that works? But we do the opposite. We raise ourselves in the eyes of the people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliates us, brings us down even lower. There's something great that happens when a man takes ownership of his wrong. Even if there's consequences, because that's the natural order of the world. There's always going to be consequences. But don't look at the consequences. Look at the fact that you were a man, you owned your wrong, you owned your actions. Those are yours, you own them. Everything that you do will be written in a book waiting for you, Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَوَجَدُوا مَا عَمِلُوا حَاضِرًا وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. And you will find Yawm al-Qiyamah in your book, مَا عَمِلُوا حَاضِرًا. You will find everything that you did, حاضر, present, right there, waiting for you. Everything that you did in this life, you will find it written, recorded in a book, Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment, waiting for you. وَوَجِدُوا مَا عَمِلُوا حَاضِرًا. And you will find everything that you did in this life, حاضر, waiting for you. Own it. It's yours. Why do we try to circumvent accountability by saying, no, I didn't do that? No, well, bring me the dalil to prove that. Right? Just in order to circumvent accountability for our actions. When Yawm al-Qiyamah, when you come on the Day of Judgment and you look in your book, in your record, all of it is there. Tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring you dalil. Tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the recording angels, to bring you dalil. Yawm al-Qiyamah, when Allah brings your book out and tells you, اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. Read your book. Today you are a proof against your own self. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah will ask the servant, هل ظلمتك كتبت شيئا. Did my recording angels wrong you in anything? Look, read your book. Did they wrong you in anything? Did they put anything in there that you didn't do? Do you need dalil for anything? Do you need proof for anything? But, in this life, when our wives try to correct us on something, it's like, nah, I didn't do that. What's the dalil for that? Is it halal or haram? Well, you made the claim, so, you don't know the Quran and the Sunnah, so, you shouldn't be trying to correct me on these issues. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. She doesn't know the Quran and the Sunnah, so she shouldn't be trying to correct you on these issues. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Wallahi, tallahi, billahi, I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on sisters who are living in their homes underneath these type of conditions. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mercy on you. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala soften the heart of your husband and allows him to understand that there is, in humility, in owning your wrong, there's a degree of humility that is attached to that. And every good leader needs humility. That is part of what makes you a good leader. And if you are the imam of your home, part of what makes you a good leader in your home is your humility. You're humbling yourself and admitting you're wrong. There's something great that is attached in Islam to a person admitting they're wrong. Most of the dua, most of the supplications that we have in Islam start off encouraging us to acknowledge our wrong. Admitting our wrong before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look at the dua of Prophet Yunus alayhi salam, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the well to swallow him up. And he remained in the belly of that well until he did what? Until he admitted his wrong before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah captured that in the Quran. وَنَادَى فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ سُبْحَانَكَ إِنِّي كُنْتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. I'm going to recite it in Arabic because it sounds so much sweeter. The Quran, subhanAllah, has a halawa, has a sweetness to it, that only those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has unlocked their heart and gave them access to the sweetness of the Quran understand what I'm saying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَنَادَى فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ سُبْحَانَكَ إِنِّي كُنْتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. And he called out in the darkness of the stomach, the belly of that well, La ilaha illa ant, nothing, no deity worthy of worship except you. Subhanaka, glory be to you. Inni kuntu min al-zalimin. I was wrong. I was wrong. This is a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledging his wrong before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْغَمِّ. Allah said we responded to him immediately and we saved him from that tumultuous situation. We saved him from that grief. Allah responded immediately. Because when there's ownership taken for your action, there's a level of humility. There's a humility that is attached to it that makes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala respond immediately. Allah responds immediately because there's sincerity involved. And the more sincere you are, the quicker, the more expedient Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's response. Allah's response is predicated on our sincerity, our ikhlas. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to make dua with ikhlas. Another issue attached to that is the Prophet ﷺ, he knew Abu Bakr was going to be the next Khalifa. He knew the Prophet ﷺ knew Abu Bakr was going to be the next leader. And so he had to prep Abu Bakr for that position of leadership. And one of the things he taught Abu Bakr was humility, to humble yourself. Humble yourself. If you humble yourself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise you. Don't worry about raising yourself. See, this is the issue with us as human beings, Americans in particular, because we have a God complex. All of the things, the responsibilities and duties of God, we believe that we have to take that on ourselves because our lack of faith in God. We lack faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the things that we should normally put in the hands of Allah, like we use the jargon. We say, I'm going to just let Allah handle this. I'm going to just put this in the hands of Allah. La wallahi, we don't. You say that because it sounds good. We say that because that's the Islamic jargon that is passed on generation to generation. But are we really leaving it in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ufawwidhu amri ila Allah. As Prophet Shu'aib said, that I leave my affairs in the hands of Allah. Are we doing as Prophet Shu'aib did? Ufawwidhu amri ila Allah. A'lamu min Allahi ma la ta'lamun. I know about Allah that which you don't know. As Prophet Yaqub said, I'm going to leave this in the hands of Allah, because I know about Allah what you don't know. This is predicated on knowledge. And we don't leave something in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ignorantly. We do that based upon ilm. A person can't say, I'm just going to leave this in the hands of God. I'm going to leave this in the hands of Allah, and he's ignorant of God. The only way you can say that and it actually means something is when you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know that Allah is Rahim. You know Allah is not going to leave you in this situation, so you leave it in his hands. You know Allah is Ar-Razaq, the provider, so you don't press the issue. You don't press the issue. You know that Allah's provision is going to come to you regardless, so you leave it in Allah's hands. You know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Muntaqim, the one who seeks retribution for his servants that were wronged. So when someone wrongs me and I say I put it in the hands of Allah, I'm not even going to get my right. I'm going to let Allah do that for me. That is based upon my knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Muntaqim, that Allah is going to seek retribution for me. You understand? You follow me? That is based upon ilm. وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I know about Allah what you don't know. So when we hear people say, I'm going to just leave it in the hands of Allah, it's kalam fadi. Kalam fadi. As the Arabs say, this is kalam that is empty speech. Empty speech. It means absolutely nothing. It's just jargon. Because the people who say that I'm going to leave it in the hands of Allah are people who know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's capabilities. Know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well acquainted with Allah's qualities. And they say that with conviction. I'm going to leave that in the hands of Allah. I'm going to let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala handle that for me. Nonetheless, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knew that Abu Bakr was destined for greatness. But there was a quality that he had to leave Abu Bakr in order for him to take his position with quwwah, with strength. And that was the quality of humility. He came to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And I mean, this came way before this particular incident. He came before, Abu Bakr came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, alimni du'a'in ad'u bihi fi salati. He said, O Messenger of Allah, teach me a dua that I can use in my prayer. Teach me a supplication, a dua that I can use in my prayer. And the Prophet ﷺ said, O Abu Bakr, now when you stand for prayer, then you should say, the dua that you should say, Allahumma inni zalamtu nafsi dhulman kathira, wa la yaghfiru dhunuba illa ant. فاغفر لي مغفرة من عندك ورحمني إنك أنت الغفور الرحيم. Allahumma, O Allah, inni zalamtu, indeed I have oppressed myself. Dhulman kathira, I have oppressed myself with much oppression. This is you acknowledging, owning your wrong before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only one that you should own your wrongs in front of. I mean, yeah, to our spouses, we want to say, yes, we're wrong. But we're not saying, yes, we're wrong simply because we want to fix the situation. We're saying, yes, we're wrong because we actually own our actions. Here, we are acknowledging our weakness before a power that is greater than us. Perfection is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why we are acknowledging that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is already aware of the wrongs that we make. Allah is aware of the mistakes that we make well before we make them. Well before we make them, Allah is already aware. So why are we acknowledging our wrong before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If Allah is already aware of the wrongs that we commit, the wrongs that we do, then why are we standing before God acknowledging a wrong that he is already aware of? Because when you take ownership of a wrong, of a mistake that you made, that requires humility. It requires you to humble yourself. And when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the number one quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you when you stand before him is humility. The whole prayer, if you look at how we stand in prayer, right arm over the left, head down, looking at the place where your head is going to prostrate, that in itself, that whole image, speaks to the character of humility. You are standing before God in a state of humility, prostrating your head on the ground, the most important part of your body. Many times we don't care how we look from the neck down, just as long as my face is okay. Because that is the most important part. That is the most important part of our bodies. And we're putting that on the ground as a form of humility before a power that is greater than us. So when we acknowledge our wrong before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not telling him something that he doesn't know. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Shouldn't he know better? The one who created, and he is Latif al-Khabir. He is the all-subtle, the all-knowing. Shouldn't he know? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So why are we acknowledging a wrong before Creator who knew we were going to commit the sin before we did it? Because it's humility. Going back in front of your Creator and saying, you know what, I was wrong. That requires humility. That requires you swallowing your pride. That requires you, putting aside your ego. Many people right now, Muslims, right now, are living a life of sin simply because they cannot muster up the courage to stand before Allah and say, I was wrong. Forgive me. They tell themselves, oh, I've gone too far now. I'm no good. I'm not going to go to the masjid today. I'm not going to pray because, Allah knows I'm a sinner, right? You're a coward. You're a coward. Because you would rather continue wallowing in sin instead of saying, you know what, this is where it stops. I know what I've done that is wrong. I need to own that. I'm going to still go before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I'm going to acknowledge my wrong in front of him. You're a coward because you can't do it. There are many people that are homeless right now outside begging people for money, not because they're homeless. They're not homeless. They burnt bridges with family members that they just refuse to go back and correct. All it takes is for you to pop up at mom's house, at dad's house, at your sister's house, at auntie's house, and say, you know what, I was wrong. But instead, no, I'm not going to say I'm wrong. I'm taking my bags and I'll go live in the street. This is why some people who homeless, seemingly homeless, are very arrogant. They're very arrogant. And the Prophet ﷺ said, ثَلَاثَ لَا يُكَلِّمُهُمُ اللَّهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَلَا يُزَكِّيهِمْ ولا يكلمهم الله يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولا ينظر إليهم ولهم عذاب عظيم. The Prophet ﷺ said there are three categories of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will neither look at, speak to, purify from their sins, and for them is a painful punishment yawm al-qiyamah. Three people. And one of those three is a'ilun mustakbir, is a poor person who is arrogant. Arrogant. They come to your car and need money. I don't have money. I have a half a sandwich I never touched. You can have it. You want food? I don't want no food. I need money. Well, I'm sorry. Sometimes you take out $2, $5, and you give it to them. It's like they're looking at you like, that's all you're going to give me? A'ilun mustakbir. You say, listen, I'm not going to give you money. But we can go into the store, you can order whatever you want and I'll pay for it. Nah, I'm good. Then you're obviously not hungry. I'm not feeding your drug habit. I'm not giving you money so you can go and get high. You want food? I'll feed you. Muslims should never deny anybody that. If there's anything that you can get from a Muslim, you can get a meal from a Muslim. As much food as we throw away in Ramadan. Every masjid, when there's food left over in Ramadan, we should invite people, poor people in the neighborhood. We should invite people who don't have, the less fortunate, to come and take what they want. Instead of throwing it away, we might be sinful for throwing food away. But there's arrogant. They're not homeless because they don't have homes to go home to. Just too arrogant to go back to the people that they wronged, the bridges that they burned, and just simply say, I was wrong. Or they burned those bridges so many times that they're just too embarrassed to go back and say, I'm wrong. I'm not going back home. Like, it is what it is. But the Prophet ﷺ, he told Abu Bakr to say, Allahumma inni dhalamtu dhulman kathira, dhalamtu nafsi dhulman kathira. Oh Allah, I have wronged myself. Because when you commit sin or you do wrong to somebody else, you're only wronging yourself. You're not wronging anybody else. The Prophet ﷺ's words were very precise. Dhalamtu nafsi dhulman kathira. When you commit sin, even if it's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're only hurting yourself. When you cut off bridges, when you burn bridges with other people, the only thing you're doing is hurting yourself. You're not hurting anybody else. I don't talk to this person no more. I cut that person off. That person might have been a benefit, a blessing in your life. You don't know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends his blessings to us through people? Do you realize that? How do you think all of the blessings that you got, that you sit on right now, that you have the luxury of saying that I have this house, I have this car, I have this job? In most instances, it's not because of what you did. Allah facilitated that to you through other people. And we go through life burning bridges with people as a sign of our ingratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah facilitated these blessings to you through these people. And it's like we get the blessing from them, and then once we get from them what we need, all right, I don't need you. You can leave out of my life. I don't talk to you anymore. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. That's us. Narcissistic. NPI, narcissistic personality, NPD, excuse me. Narcissistic personality disorder. We got it bad. We extract from you what we need from you, and then once we got what we want, nah, I don't need you in my life no more. I got what I needed. Do you realize when you do that, you are basically telling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give me the blessing, and the way that you facilitated it to me, I don't really care about that. Allah facilitates his blessings to us through other people. This person helped you get that job, and then once you got the job, you got the position, you don't even acknowledge the person anymore. Right? This person helped you get married. Once you married your spouse, you don't even hang out with the person no more. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated every single blessing that we have, right, was facilitated to us through other people. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works through his creation. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Idha ahabballahu qawmin ista'malahum." That when Allah loves a person, he uses them. He uses them. Allah works through his creation. But we want the blessing minus the way that it's facilitated to us. I got the blessing. I don't really need you in my life anymore. And I'm guilty of that myself. Many people that you done cut off in your life. Bridge after bridge after bridge, you done burned. And these are the paths, the subul, the paths in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has facilitated these blessings to you. Sometimes keeping a person in your life is not about you feeling sorry for the person or you just keeping a person in your life for no reason. Sometimes keeping a person in your life is solely based upon the blessing that they facilitated to you. The person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are the person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated the blessing that you have through them. So as a result of that, I can really care less about you, but I'm going to keep ties with you. I'm going to keep you in my life because out of respect for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of respect, honoring the path in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated that blessing to me. Allah used you for whatever reason. I don't know why, but he used you to facilitate this blessing to me. And as a sign of my gratitude to him, I'm going to keep you in my life, even if it's at a distance, because you might be toxic. You might not have much value to my life, but I'm going to keep a tie with you out of my respect for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he used you to facilitate this blessing to me. That's honoring what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ, and we have given you everything that you've asked for. Everything the human being has asked for, Allah has given it to you. وَآتَاكُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ. And I've given you everything that you've asked for. وَإِن تُعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. And if you would try to count the favors of Allah, never would you be able to enumerate. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَظَلُومٌ كُفَّارٌ. That indeed the human being is oppressive and ungrateful. That's our nature. Oppressive and ungrateful. SubhanAllah. But he taught Abu Bakr to say, "Oh Allah, I have wronged myself. ظُلْمٍ كَثِيرًا. I've wronged myself much. وَإِنَّهُ لَا يَغْفِرُ ذُنُوبَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ. And none forgive sins except you. فَاغْفِرْ لِي مَغْفِرَةً مِّنْ عِنْدِكَ وَارْحَمْنِي. So forgive me with a forgiveness that only you can give, and have mercy upon me. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. For indeed you are forgiving and merciful. Why? Out of all of the supplications the Prophet ﷺ could have taught Abu Bakr, why teach him this one? Why this one? Because the Prophet ﷺ was teaching Abu Bakr that although you are going to be the Khalifa, although you are going to be the second after me, you're going to be the leader of the Muslim community after me, there's a level of humility that you need in order to assume your position as leader. You have to be humble. And that is what he was teaching him through this, teaching him this dua. He was teaching Abu Bakr to be humble. And the first khutbah that Abu Bakr gave, he stood up on the minbar and he said, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, inni walitu alaykum wa lastu bi khayrikum. He said, O people, I have been placed over you, and I am not the best among you. I'm not the best of you. There's people out there that could probably do a better job than me. That is humility. His first khutbah, he got it. He understood what the Prophet ﷺ was trying to teach him. He got it. His first khutbah, the first time, as you know, first impressions are the best, are the greatest impressions. The first impression a person has of you is the most important. Sometimes you don't get another chance to prove yourself. You don't get another chance to prove yourself. You only get one time to get it right the first time. That's it. There's only one first time. Usually that time does not come back around. There's some cases where a person may meet in a different circumstance and say, you know what? The first time I met you, you were arrogant. The first time I met you, I thought you were arrogant. The first time I met you, I thought you were this. But something happened and you guys happen to share the same space again. You happen to cross the same path again. And Allah gave you another opportunity to make it right. But usually people don't get two opportunities. You only get one chance to get it right the first time. First impressions are very important. But he said, indeed, I have been placed over you, and I am not the best among you. That's humility. Can you imagine a person standing in front of you, you seeing them as the leader of the Muslim community after the Prophet ﷺ, and they seeing themselves as, I'm not even worthy to be standing in this position. That resonates with you as a human being. That resonates with you. Major, major. So if that's the case with the Prophet ﷺ teaching Abu Bakr the concept of humility in owning his wrong in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that he can assume his position as leader, how much more for the man who is the leader of his home? How much more for the husband who is the leader of his family? This quality of humility is necessary. And that starts with you owning your wrong. Don't translate your wrongs into rights. Don't use the Quran and the Sunnah to justify your actions. The Prophet ﷺ never used the Quran. He never chopped his family up. You know, he never beat his family up spiritually. And he was a man that received revelation. Knowledge is supposed to make you humble. Knowledge humbles you. Doesn't make you stronger. Doesn't make you more rigid. Knowledge softens your heart. That's what ilm does. Ilm softens your heart. Doesn't make you harder. So if you find yourself as a person of knowledge, right? And you find yourself becoming more harsh with people and not more merciful, then what you have is information and not knowledge. Information makes you tough. Information, people who rely on information, this is why they say high IQ does not equal high EQ. That the more intelligent you are, the less empathetic you become towards people, because you rely on your information, you rely on statistics, you rely on, numbers, you rely on facts, right? But here's a fact for you. The more you rely on the information that you have, the less humanly connected to people you become. High IQ does not equal high EQ. But when you have knowledge, ilm, beneficial knowledge from Quran and Sunnah, that softens you. That makes you soft to people. And although that is an internal struggle that many of us have, that, I don't want to be softer, because in this society, soft is interpreted as, weak. So that's a struggle for many people who have knowledge. They don't want to appear weak. They don't want to appear soft, because that has negative connotations in our society. But when you're confident within yourself and you're confident in your ability, you don't mind the way, you don't care that people see you as that. I'm okay with that. If you see me to be weak and easily, manipulated, that's on you. The Prophet ﷺ said himself that two of you come to me debating an issue, and perhaps one of you is more intellectual, more articulate than the other one. And I judge in the case of the one who is more articulate, that if I give you the right of your brother, don't take it. I'm only giving you a piece of the hellfire. Don't take it. You see how that works? He said, don't take it. Even the Prophet ﷺ is saying that he can be manipulated. One of you can come to me and you're more eloquent in your argument, in the presentation of your argument, than the other one. فَمَنْ قَضَيْتُ لَهُ حَقَّ أَخِيهِ. So if I judge in the affair giving you the right of your brother, don't take it. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us that even he can be manipulated. But that didn't stop him from being rahmatan lil alameen, as a mercy for all of mankind. That didn't stop him from being that. That didn't stop him from being merciful and compassionate. That didn't stop him from being that, because he was confident in himself. He didn't let the view of other people dictate who he is. And that's a strength. That's not a weakness. Facts. That's a strength, not a weakness. Facts. So inshallah ta'ala, brothers, stop beating your wives up, man. Stop beating your family up with Quran and Sunnah. You shouldn't even bring that into the discussion. I'm not even having that conversation with you. I'm not even asking you for dalil. I'll just, tell you that, okay, all right, you got that, whatever. I don't need to bring Quran and Sunnah into my everyday rudimentary talks with my family. I don't need to bring Quran and Sunnah into that. We function on concepts. Take the concept from the Quran and the Sunnah without using the actual ayah in black and white. Take the concept. You know that if you infringed on a right of hers, she doesn't necessarily need dalil. You know that you were wrong. Why does she need dalil? You know you're wrong. Why do I have to force somebody to go find dalil for something that I already know that I'm wrong in? Just so if you don't point the wrong out, then that means we're not selling cars here. These are people's lives. These are souls that we're dealing with. Delicate individuals. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to grasp the concept. Inshallah ta'ala, you'll find this and more in my upcoming book, The Revolution of Love. A man's perspective on loving multiple women in a non-traditional marriage, meaning polygyny. Inshallah ta'ala, the book will be released today. I'll open the chat for a few minutes for some questions and answers, inshallah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima kathira wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.